it down already. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai. Gornitai ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 79, Texts 23 and Text 24. So we'll be chanting Text 23 together. I'll give you a moment to find it. Mm-hmm. 10, 79, 23, and 24. And 23 is the one we're chanting together. Sabima Duryodhanayor Gadabhyam Yudayato Mrte Varayishyan Vinashanam Jagamaya Dunandana Sabima Duryodhanayor Gadabhyam Yudayato Mrte Parayisyan Vinashanam Jagamaya Dunandana Sabima Duryodhanayor Gadabhyam Yudayato Mrte Varayisyan Vinashanam Jagamaya Dunandana. Please chant. Sabima Duryodhanayor Gadabhyam Yudyato Mrte Parayisyan Vinashanam Jagamaya Dunandana. Thank you very much. The word for word, Sa, he, Lord Balaram. Bhima Duryodhanayo. Bhima and Duryodhana. Gadabhyam, with clubs. Yudayato, who were fighting. Mirte, on the battlefield. Varayisyan, intending to stop. Vihashanam, to the battlefield. Jagama, went. Yadu, of the Yadus. Nandana, the beloved son, Lord Balaram. And the translation by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Wanting to stop the club fight, then raging between Bhima and Duryodhana on the battlefield, Lord Balaram went to Kurukshetra. And then text 24. Yudhishthira's tutam drishtva yamau Krishna junav api abhivajya bhavam stushnim kim vivakshur ihagata. And the translation for text 24. When Yudhishthira, Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and the twin brothers Nakula and Sahadev saw Lord Balaram, they offered him respectful obeisances, but said nothing, thinking, quote, what has he come here to tell us? Close quote. And the purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada writes, so they're drawing from Krishna book, quote, the reason they were silent was that Lord Balaram was somewhat affectionate towards Duryodhana, who had learned from Balaram the art of fighting with a club. Thus, when the fighting was going on, King Yudhishthira and the others thought that Balaram might have come there to say something in favor of Duryodhana, and therefore they remained silent. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana-shlakaya Chakshurimilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swarupa Gadamayam Tadati Swapadanti Kam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam Shah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Vishwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyas Cha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Romapada Swami Tinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Srila Prabhupada paints a picture of Lord Balaram's decision to return to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is how Srila Prabhupada describes Lord Balaram's decision to return to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Lord Balaram, so this is Srila Prabhupada's words, Lord Balaram heard that although most of the Kshatriyas had been killed, the Kurus were still engaged in fighting. Therefore, he returned to the battlefield just on the day Bhimasena and Duryodhana were engaged in a personal duel. As the well-wisher of both of them, Lord Balaram wanted to stop them, but they would not stop. Close quote. So that's Srila Prabhupada writing in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, as the well-wisher of both of them, Lord Balaram wanted to stop both Duryodhana and Bhima, but they would not stop. So this positive mood of Lord Balaram towards both a member of the Pandavas and a member of the Kurus is actually something that's mentioned much earlier. And we find this in the previous chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam in the 17th verse, when Lord Balaram hears that the Kurus were preparing for war with the Pandavas, there's a specific mention that's made that of Balaram, and this is quoting, being neutral. He departed on the pretext of going to bathe in the holy places. So the BBT purport states that Duryodhan and Yudhisthira were both dear to Lord Balaram. So it was because he wished to avoid an awkward situation that he departed. So he didn't remain for the battle of Kurukshetra. And precisely because of the sentiments he held, if one could term it sentiments, so he wished to avoid any awkwardness because he was favorably disposed both to Yudhisthira and to Duryodhan. So a second reason is given too for Lord Balaram not remaining for the upcoming battle to take place, and that is that he still had to kill Romaharshan and Balvala to finish relieving the earth of the burden of demons. So he had a mission still to perform, and that's where the emphasis went, because the whole purpose Lord Balaram and Krishna were present was in order to remove the burden from the earth of all the demons. So Lord Balaram did not remain for the battle of Kurukshetra for those two reasons. Now, at this particular juncture of returning to the battlefield, consideration can be given to Lord Balaram and his relationship with Duryodhan. So at the time of the upcoming battle, there's a narration that actually Duryodhan made his way to Balaram's palace. So this is Duryodhan. It's prior to the war, preparations for war, and he's actually going to visit Lord Balaram in his palace. So this is the description. He, meaning Duryodhan, knew that Balaram was always favorable towards him. Surely he would take his side in the war. So this is how Duryodhan's thinking as he's going to Lord Balaram's palace. So the description goes on. Duryodhan found Balaram seated in his palace. After greeting him with words of affection and praise, Duryodhan submitted his plea. So here's how Lord Balaram responds to Duryodhan. So remember, he's very affectionate towards King Yudhisthira. Duryodhan's also dear to him, and Duryodhan's asking him, please take my side in this upcoming war. And this is how Lord Balaram responds. O son of Kuru, for your sake, I spoke out at Virata's assembly at the time of Abhimanyu's marriage. I pointed out to Krishna that our relations with you and the Pandavas are equal, and that your cause is as just as that of the Pandavas. O hero, Keshava did not accept my words. I cannot exist even for a moment apart from Krishna. Therefore, I have decided to help neither side. I will take no part whatsoever in the upcoming war. Fight according to Kshatriya principles, O best of men. May good fortune be yours. So that's described in Mahabharata, in Krishna Dharma relating. So the narration continues, and it gives insight into Lord Balaram's thoughts, because this is what he's just told Duryodhan. And here's how the narration continues. Balaram stood up and embraced Duryodhan, knowing that Krishna had sided with the Pandavas. He considered the Kauravas already defeated. So one gets insight into Balaram's personal thinking. So, externally, he treats Duryodhana very respectfully. He puts emphasis on his allegiance to Lord Krishna, and encourages Duryodhana to fight according to Kshatriya principles, and says, "May good all fortune be with you." And internally he embraces Duryodhana, but in his mind he's thinking, well, he knows Krishna sided with the Pandavas, so the Kauravas already defeated. So that's prior to the battle. So in the current scenario, Srila Vishwanath comments that Lord Balaram went to Kurukshetra, and the word that's used for the battlefield is vinasanam, specifically to stop the fight of Bhima and Duryodhana. Now, the reason Lord Balaram wished to stop the two of them fighting is given both by Srila Jiva and Srila Sanatana Goswami. And this is the reason that's given of why Balaram wanted to stop that fight. And this is the reason that's given, quoting, because both Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami say the same thing. The two were equally related to the Yadus. So that's Lord Balaram's thinking. That's a reason he wants to stop the fight. Both are equally related to the Yadus. Now, this would appear to be consistent with his view that his and Krishna's relations with the Pandavas and the Kurus were of an equal nature. He's acting consistently, because we heard earlier on that he's announcing that he considers his relations with the Pandavas and the Kurus to be of an equal nature. And right now, he's doing the same thing. He wants to stop a fight between the two opposing parties because his relations are equal. Now, the other reason given by Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami is that he, Balaram, wanted to stop the fighting, and the word that was used was yudayo, in this arena. So specifically at what was going on right then, he wanted to pause it. And Srila Sanatana Goswami draws attention to Lord Balaram being the joy of the Kurus. Kuru Nandana was the word that was used in the verse that we read, because he gave them joy by coming from Prabhas. And indeed, that joyfulness on the part of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana is described. So I'm going to backtrack, because this is what Srila Sanatana Goswami is drawing attention to, that actually for the Kurus, Balaram brought them joy. So I'm going to read how that is playing itself out. That both Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana felt joyfulness when Balaram came to visit them in Prabhas. So here's the description. This is from the 68th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Overjoyed to hear that Balaram, their dearest friend, had come, they first honored Uddhava, because Balaram had come with Uddhava, and then went forth to meet the Lord, carrying auspicious offerings in their hands. So that's a description that's given of how Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana received Lord Balaram at that time. And the BBT commentary for that particular description, which is text 18 of the 68th chapter, it notes that Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were joyful because they knew very well that Lord Balaram was a great well-wisher of their family. So that's why they're experiencing joyfulness. And the BBT draws from Srila Prabhupada, that commentary for that verse. And this is what Srila Prabhupada says, quote, "There were no bounds to their joy on hearing the news. So they immediately welcomed Uddhava. In order to properly receive Lord Balaram, they all took in their hands auspicious paraphernalia for his reception and went to see him outside the city door." So that's the description given by Srila Prabhupada of that particular moment, where one gets insight into actually the feelings that Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra have for Lord Balaram. and also the very respectful manner in which they actually welcome him when he comes to Prabhas. Now, in the current context, another reason is given for the joy. And Lord Balaram, and this is quoting, Lord Balaram, having been absent a long time, should have gone to Dwarka, but to give them joy, he came to Kurukshetra. So that's the, I guess, connection in terms of the internal feelings that the Kurus hold for Lord Balaram. So even in the present time, they're considering he could have gone to Dwarka, but here he's come to Kurukshetra. So again, they feel joyfulness that at his presence at Kurukshetra. So now Lord Balaram's inner thinking is explained at that time of coming to see the Kurus. So it's Lord Balaram. He wanted to deal with the tempers of the Vrishnis who had already put on their armor. So he wanted to cool down their tempers. Because this was the time when he came to Prabhas, this was the time of Samba's arrest. And Samba was actually dealt with very improperly because there were 6 warriors from the Kuru side that actually fought him simultaneously. So they acted against Kshatriya principles. So this is the description that's given of Lord Balaram, because we're trying to assess his inner thinking at this time when he came to Prabhas. So this is the description. He, meaning Lord Balaram, who purifies the age of quarrel, did not want a quarrel between the Kurus and Vrishnis. Thus, accompanied by Brahmanas and family elders, he went to Hastinapur on his chariot, which was as effulgent as the sun. As he went, he appeared like the moon planet, surrounded by the ruling planets. So this was what was the motive behind Lord Balaram going to Prabhas at that time in terms of dealing with the situation that had arisen with Samba, Lord Krishna's son, having been arrested and very improperly treated by the Kurus. And specific mention is made that actually what was motivating him was that he did not want a quarrel between the Kurus and the Vrishnis. So this role that's attributed to Lord Balaram as the purifier of the age of quarrel is seen in his dealings, because Lord Balaram was trying to avert a quarrel. So generally the age of Kali is defined as the age in which the citizens are affected by irreligious practices. That's sort of what defines the age. People get affected by their irreligious practices. So their being affected, one can infer, is visible through their readiness to quarrel. So that's the significant point. There's always this readiness to quarrel because of the irreligious practices. And in the current context, Lord Balaram wanted to stop the fight, but they would not stop. So this is that fight between Bhima and Duryodhana. So that Srila Prabhupada tells us they would not stop. So Srila Prabhupada writes, and this is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so I'm quoting him, when Lord Balaram appeared on the scene, King Yudhisthira and his younger brother, so this is moving into the second verse that we read today, when Lord Balaram appeared on the scene, King Yudhisthira and his younger brother Nakula and Sahadev, as well as Lord Krishna and Arjuna, immediately offered him their respectful obeisances. But they did not speak at all, close quote. So now this is very interesting. There was that early analysis of Lord Balaram's position with regard to the Kurus and the Pandavas. And it plays itself out with regard to the knowledge the other persons have of his position. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the reason they were silent was that Balaram was somewhat affectionate towards Duryodhana. So they knew, King Yudhisthira, Krishna, Arjuna, they knew that Balaram was somewhat affectionate to Duryodhana, who had learned from Balaram the art of fighting with a club. It's Srila Prabhupada writing. When the fighting was going on, this is the purport we read for the verse, and it's drawn from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, Srila Prabhupada writing. When the fighting was going on, King Yudhisthira and others thought that Lord Balaram may have come there to say something in favor of Duryodhana, and they therefore remained silent. So it's because they understand what Lord Balaram's position is towards both them and Duryodhana, that he looks somewhat affectionately upon Duryodhana. So they were silent. And Srila Vishwanath states that they remained silent because they were worried what Lord Balaram had come to say. So they didn't utter anything. They waited and they were concerned. What was Lord Balaram going to say? Now, the thoughts of Krishna and Arjuna are expanded upon by Srila Jiva Goswami, who states that Krishna and Arjuna welcomed Balaram last, since they were ashamed to be the last two Kshatriyas left when all the other Kshatriyas and friends had been killed in the war. So that's the reason that Srila Jiva Goswami gives for why there was this silence and why they were last to welcome Lord Balaram. They felt a little bit ashamed because there they were, the only Kshatriyas left standing. All the other Kshatriyas had actually died in the battle, including friends. So Srila Jiva Goswami states that they were wondering, what has Balaram come to say? Does he want to point out our faults or highlight our good qualities? So there's a moment of anxiety, so they're silent. So they're aware of their situation. They're thinking how Lord Balaram may be viewing the whole situation. Because remember, he did not stay for the Battle of Kurukshetra. So he's just coming now. And it's again with that same aim of trying to break up a fight. And he's been very consistent in that kind of approach. So there's a description in Mahabharata. So I'm going to go into this because it's such an interesting thing. Generally, there's this, there's the personal thinking one has, and there's the concern about what are another person's thoughts about oneself or one's actions. It's a very natural thing. And so I'm going to look at a description in Mahabharata that comes near the end of the Kurukshetra war that explains something of the following of the rules of warfare on the part of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Because if the question is, and this is what their concern is, are they going to receive criticism or are they going to be praised on some good behavior? So I thought to look at actually one of the moments of how Krishna and Arjuna are behaving near the end of the war. So here's a description. This is coming from Mahabharata. Of the two great armies, all that remained were less than 1,000 Pandava troops. Because remember, we just heard that most of the Kshatriyas had been killed, virtually all, and it was just the two of them that were left standing, Krishna and Arjuna. So here's the Mahabharata saying there were less than 1,000 Pandava troops, filled with joy at having finally attained victory against the mighty Kurus. They wearily returned to camp. As the 18th night fell, as that was the last day of battle, they laid down their weapons and rested. Krishna had suggested to Yudhisthira and his brother that they spend the night at the Kauravas' camp in accordance with tradition, because that was a general tradition, or it was just customary that even enemies fighting during the day, at night they would actually go and socialize with each other in their camps. So at this particular time, it's the end of the battle. The Kurus have been defeated, and it seems that they even thought they were going to spend the night in the enemy's camp. This was the suggestion or part of the culture of what's required of them. So here it is. As the victors, it was now their prerogative to take possession of all the Kauravas' property. They also needed to provide leadership and protection to the Kauravas' many servants and women who were at the camp. Accompanied by Krishna, the two brothers entered Duryodhana's great tent and rested there for the night. So there's the description in Mahabharata of something of how Krishna, Arjuna, and Yudhishthira were conducting themselves. So this description highlights qualities by which the Kshatriyas work. And this is given in Bhagavad Gita. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. So we've just heard that they understood their role, a leadership role, that it required giving protection to the women and the servants that were in Duryodhana's camp. And also that basically now it was all their property. So there's that they immediately rose to the occasion, and in a leadership position, they proceeded to avail themselves in that kind of way of the enemy's property, going to rest in the camp, but at the same time thinking that they have to give protection to the women and servants. So, of course, I was drawing from the qualities of Kshatriyas in Bhagavad Gita, given in the 18th chapter and the 44th verse. Now, there's a similar display of such qualities at the time of dragging the bound Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama, at the same time of how Krishna, Arjuna, and Yudhishthira were functioning and thinking, and this that I've just read of their particular choice at the end of battle. Ashwatthama, on the other hand, on the part of the Kurus, he made a completely different decision, and he actually, there's a description given of how he's actually not able to sleep while he's out in the forest because they've gone to find Duryodhana, and while he's lying awake, he sees, I don't know if it was a vulture or eagle, just coming and killing sleeping owls and watching the dead owls fall from the tree. So he got the idea, and he decided he was actually going to go and slaughter whoever was sleeping on the side of the Pandavas in their tent. And so he's actually massacring. So it's completely against Kshatriya principles. It's, in fact, he was even advised on his own side that it was a very cowardly act. But he thought this would be a way, because there's no way they were actually going to be able to defeat the Pandavas in daylight hours with proper Kshatriya behavior. So he made this choice, and he went and massacred the sleeping persons in the Pandava tents. And he came across one tent where he saw a person sleeping, so he thought, oh, this must be the Pandavas, and he proceeded to decapitate the 5 sleeping persons, and it actually turned out to be the teenage sons of the Pandavas. So now we're going to look at how Krishna and Arjuna deal with Ashwatthama when they actually find him and they bind him up. And they know the reason for doing that was because he killed the members of Krishna and Arjuna's camp while they were sleeping, and he beheaded the teenage sons of the Pandavas, thinking them to be the Pandavas' 5 brothers. So here's a description from Mahabharata of that particular moment. So again, we're looking at how Krishna and Arjuna are behaving, because we've read that there's that little bit of anxiety they have of what's Balaram going to say about them. Is he going to look at their good qualities, good points, or is he going to have something critical to say because he's actually favorably disposed towards Duryodhana? So at this moment, with the bound Ashwatthama, here's a description quoting, Krishna looked at Arjuna, who was standing over Ashwatthama. O Partha, quote, this is Krishna talking, you must find some way to satisfy both your wife and your brother. And the reason Krishna says this is because just prior to this, Draupadi had said, "Oh Arjuna, release him. He is a Brahmin and your guru's son. Do not make Drona's wife weep like I'm weeping. Show him mercy." So even though earlier on Draupadi had actually wanted Ashwatthama to be punished for the heinous crime he committed, beheading her sons, at the time when she saw him, she actually had a change of heart. And she actually asked Arjuna, release him. She did not want Drona's wife to be in the position that she was in, weeping for Ashwatthama having been killed. So she actually says to Arjuna, release him. Show him some mercy. And Bhima, on the other hand, he argues that Ashwatthama should be killed at once. So this is what Bhima says. He has mercilessly slain sleeping boys. What kind of Brahmin is that? Why should he be spared? So that's Bhima's view. Now Arjuna, he has the task, because Krishna's told him, you've got to find a way to satisfy both your wife and your brother. So the one is asking, the wife is asking, show him mercy, release him. His brother is saying, why should he be spared? He mercilessly killed sleeping boys. So this is how Arjuna acts. So all of this has relevance because, again, they're having anxiety when Lord Balaram's coming. Is Lord Balaram going to look at their good points? Is he going to find some fault because of his particular soft spot, you could say, for Duryodhana? So this is what Arjuna does. Arjuna drew his sword and raised it, taking hold of Ashwatthama's hair with his other hand. Draupadi gasped as he brought the razor-sharp sword down in a sweeping arc. But Arjuna severed only Ashwatthama's top knot with its shining jewel-encrusted clasp. Presenting the jewel to Draupadi, he said, quote, "O beautiful lady, this fellow is now as good as dead. Cutting off a warrior's hair is equal to killing him. And this jewel was the epitome of all of Ashwatthama's power." So one could say, to understand the mind of someone, one would have to have an understanding of culture. And drawing from a compilation that's there, a book called Way of Kings. It's a compilation from the Puranas, the Smritis, the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita. There's this particular statement. If you feel satisfied with your accomplishments, after reflecting upon your methods, you have achieved the highest success. So that's the criterion by which to judge the behavior of warriors. One has to reflect upon the methods that were used. So even if they're feeling satisfied with their accomplishments, they defeated the Kurus, they have to actually take into account the methods that were used. And if they're satisfied after reflecting on their methods, then they've achieved the highest success. So that would be the criterion that Lord Balaram would have to apply to evaluate Krishna and Arjuna while they're standing there feeling a little bit ashamed that they're the last Kshatriyas left standing. So these are the thoughts and the expansion on these two verses of today. If there's some thoughts to contribute to this examination, please feel free.
It's always surprising um, Lord Balaram's disposition towards Duryodhan. We have discussed it, on different occasions through this pastime. Um, one you quoted, um, the relationship that was there between the Kauravas, especially Duryodhan and Lord Balaram, and that sort of had that very revealing sort of um, exchange that happens during the situation with Shamba, that when Lord Balaram arrived, they honored Lord Balaram, and there was all those very genuine exchanges of well-wishing and appreciation until Balaram asked for something that was very much part of the attachment, or part of the disposition of Duryodhan. Uh, so although they were honoring Balaram as his spiritual master, when it came to Lord Balaram asking something of Duryodhan, that he had to give up his position, then he insulted Lord Balaram. He just um, I can't remember the past time fully, but I think even there were some insults towards Lord Balaram. And so, one may say, well, that shows that, where is the limit, or where is the ceiling of this relationship. And certainly not all the things are the same. It's quite different of the character of the Pandavas. That even when Lord Balaram arrives, they were respectful, but they made sure that they acted uh, properly, without challenging Lord Balaram. They didn't challenge him. You know, what do you want? That type of thing. You know. In one part of the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna did challenge Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram anger at Bhima when Bhima crushed Duryodhana's thigh, which was prohibited. It was something that was not allowed in the battle of club. Then Balaram was so upset that he was going to kill Bhima. And Krishna confronted him. And Krishna says, the truth, that in this battlefield there was no space for neutrality, because it was a battlefield in which the, uh, the stakes were goodness against evil. So you can side, you can be neutral, because neutrality means you're favoring, evil. So, but that was Krishna, and it was, when Lord Balaram was, now gonna act uh, to against people. So it's always externally. We discussed that, like externally, all these things are confusing, but thanks to our Vaishnava acharyas, we can understand the how in sync is the purpose Lord Balaram facilitating the Leela of Krishna and creating all the necessary external arrangements for the Leela to take place and have all these very important lessons for mankind. So, anyways,
Oh, thank you so very much for the wonderful contribution. Yes, I think the point you've made of that one, that the relationship um, has its limit, at least on Duryodhana's side. Um, and from the point of view of the affection Balaram has towards Duryodhana, it's very natural for a teacher to have affection for the student. So it's kind of wishing the student well. But naturally, still the teacher holds a powerful position. and that played itself out in that pastime in Prabhas, because actually Lord Balaram ended up exercising his power. So he used his plow and started dragging, I think it was the whole of Hastinapur. So that led to the correct behavior then being shown on the uh, part of the Kurus. Uh, so, then Samba was produced, and his bride was, and he were, kindly escorted. The whole scenario changed. Um, so even that affection, teacher to student, um, the teacher remains in the powerful position. So, and the other one, the second point you made of Krishna pointing out that there's no room for neutrality in a war. And it's interesting because that was although not said in those kind of words, but Lord Balaram understood that there was going to be awkwardness with his favoring both Yudhisthira and Duryodhana. So he completely left the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He was not present. So, understanding there could be awkwardness. So, there's always that great intelligence that's there. And then always when you read actually his internal mood, he understood, oh, the Krishna siding with the Pandavas, the Kurus already dead. So he is, as you pointed out, after giving those two aspects of Lord Balaram's particular stance, he always remains loyal to Krishna's view, and in fact is, as he's put it, he can't be separated from Krishna for a moment. So he's completely in accord and in line with Krishna's orchestration of events. But indeed, somehow his particular nature of his relationship somehow makes everything even more beautiful, where even with dealing with very poor behavior, improper behavior, even behavior that's against Kshatriya principles, he actually still goes through things in a very, what would be the word, with proper etiquette. But then exercises his power when the correct action is still not being done. So, yeah, it is rather wonderful actually reading it, and how it all gets orchestrated so amazingly, and that is always in line with Krishna's broader picture of things. So, thank you very much for the contribution. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.